Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Scores studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so we're going to be taking a step back real quick. A step back in time, but also forward in time at the same time, if that makes any sense. Let's jump into it. So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about potential changes that could happen in Commander and what might actually push those changes forward. Let's talk about an article from a little while ago that might foreshadow what might happen to Commander now that Wizards is actually in control of it. So Hipsters of the Coast had this article a little while ago about the Commander bracket breakdown, and I will put this in the link in the description below. Or I'll put the link in the description below if I could talk, just in case you want to check that out. This was back in 2019, but again, way back then, it was a different day and age. That was before the year of Commander, and of course, well before Wizards taking over the format. So, just a really quick read at the top is all I'm going to dig into. Maybe later on at some point I'll dig into some other rule changes, but I'm going to talk about the number one, which is, I believe, most possible to change now that Wizards are in control. Here we go. This weekend, in preparation of another head-to-head bracket, Mark Rosewater tweeted out 16 possible changes to Commander to be voted on by the community. Should be clarified up front, Wizards does not control the Commander Rules Committee. Again, this literally has changed now, so they actually do control Commander. Though they can create data to help inform the committee's decisions, while this bracket does not directly influence changes to the rules, it will probably influence the process to some extent. It did not. There weren't actually changes from this, but now again, Wizards is in control of the format, so certain things might change. So as we can see in here, we have at the top, change hybrid mana rules. And this is the one that I think could potentially happen because of the person that is in charge at Wizards when it comes to design. Not necessarily in charge of the Commander format, of course, but of course does have substantial pull in that organization to potentially convince some others who might make that decision. It could happen. Now, let's jump over. We're going to talk about exactly, what that means for hybrid cards, what hybrids cards are for those you don't know, and then also what Mark has said so far. So, this is actually the Twitter post, just to make sure everyone knows that this Twitter post actually happened about the, head-to-head possible rules changes to Commander, kind of just like a bracket. Again, it was more of just a thought experiment at that time. At this point, again, they could be considering actual changes to the format. I want to put this out there first. I don't believe that they'd be doing this immediately. This is something, again, where they talked about they're going to be evaluating certain things. And my estimation would be like January when they're going to be getting back to us on probably their, power bracket system, whatnot, and probably unbanning some things potentially. And I already did some episodes on those, so make sure you check those out and what's most likely to be unbanned potentially. I don't think there's going to be any bans, and I don't think there's going to be any changes right away. But in the future, again, maybe a year out, maybe 2 years out, we could see some actual changes to the rules of Commander now that Wizards is involved. And by involved, I mean in control of the format. This post from Mark Rosewater, again, the head designer at Wizards, better known as Maro. Here's the problem. Commander's take on hybrid contradicts the design function of it. Hybrid is specifically designed to be used in monocolored, almost said multicolored, in monocolored decks. Freudian slip right there. Companion as, is that the term? Anyway, Companion as an example was designed to be in monocolored decks. I get it's also multicolored, but that's a byproduct. So again, the design, the intent behind the design of hybrid mana is that it is supposed to be able to be utilized in either or, which, for most other formats outside of Commander, you definitely can. Literally, you can use cards that, you don't really have, focus on that color at all, but if it's, hybrid mana, cool, and you've got a green deck, and it's a green-blue card, you can utilize the green pips, because you don't have to spend the blue pips. That being said, in Commander, of course, the rule is, except for one small weird exception kind of thing we'll talk about here in a second, essentially, if there's a hybrid mana symbol on the card, it counts as both for the Commander identity of the card. So, again, if you've got that green-blue card, that green-blue hybrid mana, you can't use it in, say, a mono-blue deck or a mono-green deck, but again, that is something that could change because Mark Rosewater obviously seems to be pretty passionate about the intent of hybrid mana, essentially. And since Mark is the head designer at Wizards with some pull, that could make a decision change. Now, Mark is not in charge of I don't believe the design team itself, when it comes to the people who are in charge of the design team specifically, that is part of making the Commander rules set. The Commander rules committee moving forward, whatever they're calling it again. I can't remember. It's like a Commander format group of some sort. I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about the hybrid cards really quick just to see what kind of cards are actually out there in hybrid world right now. What might actually see play again if you did say, all right, yeah, this could just go into any deck that has black or any deck that has green, like a Deathrite Shaman. It wouldn't have to go in decks that have both Golgari. Again, this opens up options not just for monocolor decks, like again, like for a Deathrite Shaman. Cool, that is we're sorting by EDH Rec right here. That is the most played out of every single hybrid card, apparently, Deathrite Shaman. It can see play in decks that only have Golgari or more. That being said, of course, it could go in mono green then. It could go in mono black. And yeah, mono black having like a little Mandor could be quite nice for them, obviously, that low to the ground. That being said, it could also go in, say, a 3-color deck like, oh, I don't know. I was about to say Jeskai, which is the only thing it can't go in that is 3-color. But, of course, it could go in Mardu. There you go. It could go in like a Mardu deck. It could go in, it doesn't have green, but it's got Mardu. So there you go. Saheeli Sublime Artificer, again, another one that could go, okay, in blue or red. Not a combination of both. All these are cards that, again, there's no like huge giant heavy hitter out here, it doesn't seem like, in hybrid mana world, although we'll talk about some other possibilities here in a second that kind of change some things as well. That being said, there are some cards that, like, yeah, I mean, if Murkfiend Liege was available to go in certain decks, it would go in certain decks. Or Sundering Growth, privileged position, protecting all your permanents with hexproof. Yeah, I'm sure there'd be some monocolored white decks or monocolored green decks that might want that, or Enchantress decks that don't have both colors, essentially. Revitalizing Repass would see a lot of play in other kinds of decks as well. And here's kind of where we get to crux of things too, where, yeah, hey, companions. Let's jump over that really quick. Companions, and that was kind of mentioned by Mark when it came to like the design of them too. Companions would change as well if they changed that rule. And that would open up a lot of things when it comes to what kind of decks companions can go into. Except for Gigantha. Sorry, Gigantha, because Wooburg in your cost as well. Or not your cost, in your text. That being said, every other companion, essentially, that is a legal companion, sorry, Lutri, that could actually utilize that companion, sorry, Yorion, because of the deck size. Anyways, all the other ones could essentially go in decks that, again, Lurrus could go in a deck that just has white or just has black. So it could go in a Golgari deck. It could go in an Azorius deck. Or as a companion, you know what I'm saying? So that opens things up for all these companions and what kind of decks that they can go in as well. So that does change things when it comes to those. Now, there is one kind of thing that you might be saying if you are a newer player, like, well, I've actually seen like hybrid mana on certain cards, and it's kind of weird. There is some weirdness to hybrid mana a little bit, because there is one exception to the rule, and that is, oops, I hit the wrong button. There we go. Extort. We'll get to the other one here in a second. Extort. So extort cards like Blind Obedience, which, and Crypt Gas, my goodness, Pond of Light. There's a lot of good extort cards out there, okay? And the new Sauron, I forgot about that too. Okay. So Extort is the only kind of hybrid mana that you will ever see on a card right now that breaks the hybrid mana rule, because it is reminder text. It is in that parentheses that says, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay, white/black. If you do, each opponent loses life, you gain 1 life, or they gain that much life. So this is the only kind of hybrid mana that actually is allowed right now in Commander, because it is simply reminder text. You could just delete that text off the card and just have the word extort, just like you could have, trample or haste or whatnot. You could just have that on there, or training. I don't know why training came to mind, but you could just have that on there. So therefore, you don't need that. And therefore, since it's reminder text just reminding you, it doesn't technically break the Commander color identity rules. And yes, that's a little of a weird thing that takes a little while to get used to if you're a newer player, but that's just kind of how it is. But again, that could change. Which is just kind of fascinating to think about, again, from the start of Commander, that a rule like this could change. And again, what kind of impact that could have on certain cards, certain cards being utilized in different kinds of decks and opening up different strategies for different decks too. I have in the past said that my personal opinion is that I personally would not like to see that rule change. That's just, it's a rule that I am used to. I don't think it really, it wouldn't, ruin, my entire year if they did change the rule. But it is something that I do think that I like the different kind of nature of Commander, where there are kind of specific things. There are things that's like, okay, you know what? This is a restriction on your deck building. And sometimes more restrictions on something can make it a bit more fun to build around something, or a bit more focused to build around something, versus just like, oh yeah, that's good, okay, throw in that, oh that's good, throw in that. It is something that could open things up. And there is something else outside of, and actually I don't know if it was included in all this hybrid up here. It might not have been, actually. And actually it's not entirely, that many cards, I guess, 434. Because there are certain cards like Expansion Explosion, which yes has hybrid mana in it, but also has non-hybrid mana in it, so it'd still be an Izzet card. So there you go. That being said, there are other cards that were probably not included in that, actually. When it comes to hybrid mana, if that rule changed, I believe, and let me know in the comments below if you've seen kind of any talk about this as well, I believe that would not only just change when it comes to hybrid cards in the cost of the card, but I believe that would also affect kind of any abilities on the card, anything in the text box as well, any hybrid mana in that too. So for example, in Emil the Blessed, we've got a commander that is white, but also has white or green. So this is one in the actual ability, I should say. Whenever the creature has battlefield under control, you may pay Selesnya, essentially, right? There you go. So this is one that can only fit currently into decks that actually has, well, white or green. It needs both. It needs both in that. So, Selesnya, it could go in, well, anything else that has white and green. 5 color. I mean, anything else. Bant. There you go. I was trying to think of a 3 color. I don't know why anything came to mind. But yes, now, essentially, if that rule changed, you could play this in a mono white deck. You could play this in any deck that has white or green. Doesn't have to have both. Or, non-legendary creatures as well. If I could scroll to actually get to one that has this. Oh, there you go. Soulfire Grandmaster. I was like, I gotta scroll pretty far to actually get there. Soulfire Grandmaster is, technically a card that is in Jeskai, but again, with the potential change in hybrid mana, if that did happen, then this could go in Boros. And my goodness, there are certain Boros decks out there that would really like that. Insular spells you control have lifelink. Yeah, Burn in 8 Boros decks would absolutely love this. So, again, that could go in Azorius, that could go in Boros, go in any kind of combination of those. So it does kind of, again, change the dynamics of what is available in certain strategies. I mean, Shaman of the Great Hunt is a really cool card. It's a card that, again, only fits in certain decks out there because it is a Teamer card right now. But yeah, if it did change, there'd be a lot of Gruul decks out there that would love this, I am sure. Ferocious for 2, Simic, draw a card for each creature controlled power 4 or greater. Yeah, there's a lot of Gruul decks out there that have a lot of power that'd be like, yeah, let's throw that in there. Because again, you could just ignore the blue on the card essentially if they change that hybrid rule. So it's interesting to see again, not just the cards that have that hybrid in their casting cost, but again, cards that have that hybrid within the actual card text box itself, and that changing the dynamic of what kinds of decks that they can actually go into. So yeah, we actually got some more recently as well, like Ophelia, Evereth, actually quite a few, my goodness, in Jumpstart, my goodness. Evereth, as well as Plagon, Tycho, they went kind of crazy with that. I did not realize that, actually. And, of course, there's some that really probably don't matter at all. I mean, like, will this make Maestro's Initiate see any more play? Probably not, but you never know. Or Blistering Dyflin, probably not. But there are certain ones, again, that definitely would see more play, that would get expanded outside of just their normal color identity, essentially, if that was to change. So it is interesting to think that, again, with that article from years and years and years ago that, like, literally mentioned, like, it should be clarified that Wizards does not control the Rules Committee, now they do. Now they do control the Rules Committee, and the person who is at the head of the design team, the head designer at Wizards, not necessarily in charge of the new Commander Rules Committee. I don't know how that works. I don't believe Mark's in charge of that. That being said, has influence in Wizards, and also, there are probably other people at Wizards, too, that maybe think the same way. If they're coming from that design background where they're like, we are building these cards, again, with the intent. Again, what do you call it? Here we go. The hybrid is specifically designed to be used in monocolor decks. Again, that is it contradicts the take on hybrid, contradicts the design function of it, okay? So being able to say, you know what? These cards are designed in this way. They should be utilized in this way, in this format that was out of our control, but now is in our control. It'd be interesting to see kind of where things end up with this. This is a rule that I don't, again, whether or not I think this could be changed. If I had to like kind of like, oh my goodness, if I had to kind of like, it's like a coin flip at this point to me, like if I think this would be changed or not. Again, I don't think it's gonna be changed like January. I don't think it's gonna be changed very quickly. It'd be something that I think would be a year or two out if it did get changed. But I do think it's like a coin flip on if it gets changed or not, because again, when you have this rule being decided in-house by Wizards and now they have the power to do so, for good or for bad, they're going to make decisions that they want to make with this. And I don't think, again, that they do giant shakeups right away, because they probably want things to be pretty, outside of unbanning maybe a couple things like Coalition Victory or whatnot. Like, I think that they're going to keep things pretty even keel to start off for a bit, so they're not shaking too much up. That being said, once things get a bit comfortable, they might shake some things up, and they might make that change. And yeah, that's just one of the changes, again, that was on this, possible changes to Commander head-to-head bracket that was voted on by the community on, like, okay, like, which ones could change, which ones should change. And at some point, again, maybe I'll tackle the other ones. Actually, I think I did a long time ago. Eddie and I did an episode, you can check that out, about the potential changes to Commander. I think we talked through each of them, and some of our opinions might have changed over time. I'm going to be honest. Like, again, I think that was from 4 or so many years ago. That was a long time ago, actually, when this came out. Right? When did this came out? Like 2019? Yeah, a while back. So some of our, thoughts on, some of these rule changes, I mean, might change from then, and maybe opinions from, maybe Mark's opinion has changed since then. I can't imagine Mark's opinion on hybrid has changed since then, but maybe it has. But yeah, other potential changes that could happen at some point, like, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that we do get certain changes, like the, hybrid mana is probably the most likely one in my opinion. No max deck size. I mean, that's just kind of funny for Yorion and that kind of stuff too. Or Battle of Wits and that kind of stuff. Soul Ring ban, that's not really like a change. That's more of a ban, so it's different. But yeah, there's certain things that could change and really shake up the Commander format. The hybrid mana one wouldn't be a giant shakeup. I mean, it's only so many cards, but it does change kind of the aspects of things moving forward, and maybe it changes actually what Wizards is willing to design too. Just think about that. Like, if they change that rule, they might be willing to design more hybrid cards because they're going to appeal to more Commander players because they do fit in more decks out there. So that could be their logic behind it too. So yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's a coin flip. I don't think it's going to happen immediately. Again, I'm not saying that massive changes are going to happen right now. I'm saying that, next year, toward the end of the next year or the year after that, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a slight shakeup where they did adjust certain rules that, again, they believe are better for Commander in general. Whether, I believe that or not, or you believe that or not, they are, at the end of the day, now they're in charge of the format. And so, yeah, certain changes might just happen because they can do that, and the people who are, in charge over at Wizards have opinions on certain things that might differ, and, the community's just gonna have to adjust from that. So we do have, again, some cards that might adjust, and some cards in the future that might be made differently because of a certain adjustment. So there you go. Again, at this point, the only kind of hybrid that does work in Commander is, I hit it again, extort, which is, again, because of reminder text. That being said, it could be different in the future, and we might see more and more and more changes like that. And also, again, if that does change, get your companions ready because they can fit in more decks out there. There you go. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Do you think a rule change would actually happen around hybrid mana? Do you think there are any other rule changes out there that could happen? Again, this is all very speculative. This is all just based off of Wizards now controlling the format, which does change things up, and things that the head designer at Wizards has said in the past, which, again, if there's any influence that happens over the decisions, that might just be what happens when it comes to hybrid mana. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.